Good evening. It's Sunday, February 5th. I'm Yael Shir, and this is IBA News, broadcasting live from Jerusalem. Prime Minister Netanyahu is headed for London, where he is slated to hold talks with British Prime Minister Theresa May tomorrow. The meeting will be the first between the two officials since May took office. Speaking at the start of today's weekly cabinet meeting, Netanyahu laid out the planned agenda for talks with his British counterpart and with British Foreign Minister Boris Johnson. Netanyahu said he intends to emphasize the need for a common stand against the Iranian aggression, which has raised its head in recent days. He added that this needs to be done on a regular basis, especially in light of Iran's defiance of the international order. According to a statement released from May's spokesperson, the British Prime Minister will reiterate Britain's concern that Israeli settlement building undermines trust in the Middle East peace process. Topping their agenda will be discussions over security and international matters, as well as the strengthening of the bilateral relationship, with an emphasis on trade, innovation, and technology. Netanyahu's visit to London comes 10 days before his slated trip to the U.S. next week. Prior to his scheduled meetings with U.S. President Donald Trump, the White House issued a first-of-its-kind statement for the new administration over Israel's settlement activity, echoing the position that unchecked expansion of the settlements in Judea and Samaria may not help to achieve peace. Just days earlier, Israel announced plans to construct 3,000 housing units in settlements in Judea and Samaria, in addition to another 2,500 approved by the government. Senior U.S. administration officials said Israel's steps undermine chances of achieving a peace deal with the Palestinians. The issue is expected to come up at the meeting between U.S. President Trump and Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu in Washington on February 15th. At a Washington briefing, White House Press Secretary Sean Spicer emphasized that while the administration does not believe the existence of the settlements impedes the peace process, the construction of new ones are not helpful.
We don't believe that the existence of current settlements is an impediment to peace, but I think the construction or expansion of existing settlements beyond the current borders is not going to be helpful moving forward.
The High Court of Justice today decided to postpone the demolition of 9 homes in the settlement of Ofra by 1 month, saying they hoped it could be conducted in a peaceful manner. This after residents of the 9 homes that were slated for demolition on Wednesday petitioned the High Court, requesting that the judges delay the order for another 3 months. The state recommended postponing the demolition of 5 of the 9 homes, saying the families living there had purchased new ones, but they would only be ready after a few months. In 2015, the court determined that the 9 disputed houses were built on privately owned Palestinian land and had set a 2-year deadline for the state to demolish the houses on February 8th. Jewish Home Party ministers Naftali Bennett and Ayelet Shaked were harshly criticized by the evacuated families from Amona, who blamed them for the demolishing of their homes. At a meeting last night in Ofra, the families accused the 2 ministers of failing to act on their behalf to prevent the evacuation. Despite the accusations, Bennett vowed he would do everything possible to push the controversial settlements regulations bill forward this week. Referring to the bill, which is slated to come up for a vote in the Knesset tomorrow night, Shaked said that if need be, they would hire a lawyer from outside to represent the government, after Attorney General Avichai Mandelblat's refusal to support the bill. Shaked said if the law is rejected by the High Court, the government would find a way to bypass the court decision. Thousands of Jews and Israeli Arabs took to the streets of Tel Aviv last night to protest what they called the government's policy of discrimination and incitement against the local Arab population. The demonstration was attended by many Knesset members from the left and Arab parties, including MK Michal Rosen of Meretz and the head of the Joint Arab List, Ayman Udeh, who called on Jews and Arabs to unite for equality and social justice. Odeh lashed out at Prime Minister Netanyahu, accusing him of being a racist, as well as Public Security Minister Gilad Erdan, whom he called a liar. Also protesting was the widow of Yaqub al-Kian, the Bedouin teacher who allegedly ran over and killed police officer Erez Levy before he was shot dead by police during last month's house demolitions in the Bedouin village of al-Hiran. The widow called for the formation of a commission of inquiry into the deaths of her husband and the Israeli police officer. Staying in Tel Aviv, in the city's Rabin Square, thousands of others gathered last night to express support for the policy of decriminalizing marijuana use in Israel, which was adopted by Public Security Minister Gilad Erdan last week. The protest, organized by pro-legalization groups and the National Student Union, was attended by leading Israeli musicians, including Shimi Tavori, who was arrested 2 months ago for using the drug, and popular hip-hop group Hadag Nachash. Likud MK Sharin Heskel and Meretz MK Tamar Zandberg, both of whom spearheaded the campaign in the Knesset, addressed the crowd, calling on the government to reform the law so that consumption of cannabis will no longer be considered a criminal offense. Participants also called on the government to regulate the selling of marijuana so users will not be forced to pay high prices to illegal drug users. Iran held a military exercise over the weekend to test missile and radar systems. This less than a day after the U.S. administration announced it was imposing new sanctions on the Islamic Republic for test firing a medium-range ballistic missile in the Semnan province last week. A commander in Iran's Revolutionary Army said that the country will use its missiles to defend itself from its enemies. The test was viewed as a violation of a UN resolution that barred Tehran from conducting ballistic missile tests for 8 years.
These kind of sanctions don't happen quickly, but I think the timing of them was clearly in reaction to what we've seen over the last couple of days. We knew we had these options available to us because they had been worked through the process. But we acted swiftly and decisively today because the timing was right. So, you know, they were in the pipeline, they had been staffed and approved, and the president made the decision that now was the time to do it based on recent action.
Hamas has reportedly turned down an Israeli proposal for a prisoner exchange that would trade the brother of a senior Hamas official who has been imprisoned in Israel for one of 2 Israelis held by Hamas. Israel offered to trade Bilal Razeneh, who is mentally unstable, for either Avera Mengistu or Hisham Asayad, both of whom are said to be mentally unstable and held by Hamas. Hamas reportedly rejected a one-for-one exchange and demanded an all-encompassing deal, which included the bodies of missing soldiers, Oron Shaul and Hadar Golden, for the release of hundreds of Palestinian prisoners. Turning to the U.S., President Donald Trump's controversial immigration ban. A U.S. appeals court has denied an emergency appeal from the Department of Justice to restore the executive order. This comes after a judge ordered that the ban be lifted. Trump's order barred citizens from 7 Muslim countries from entering the U.S. for 90 days and suspended the U.S. refugee admission system for 120 days. The appeals court ruling was a setback to the new president, who quickly denounced the judge. After issuing the appeal, Trump attacked U.S. District Judge James Robart in several tweets, stating, quote, "The opinion of this so-called judge, which essentially takes law enforcement away from our country, is ridiculous and will be overturned." In the meantime, the recent developments have created a window of opportunity for travelers from the banned countries to enter the U.S. until the legal uncertainty is resolved. Here at home, opposition leader Isaac Herzog was released from the hospital last night after suffering a mild stroke. Herzog felt unwell Friday evening and, at his wife's insistence, went to the Sourasky Medical Center in Tel Aviv, where he underwent tests and was advised to remain overnight for observation. Upon his release last night, the 56-year-old Zionist Union leader posted a video clip on his Facebook page in which he thanked the medical staff, whom he called angels in white and green, for giving patients such loyal treatment. Herzog said he was glad the entire affair was over and stressed he was resuming business as usual. During his brief hospital stay, the opposition leader received calls from Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas, and politicians at home and abroad, wishing him a speedy recovery. 13 firefighter teams battled a fire that broke out in Haifa's Carmelit mini subway on Saturday, causing damage to train carriages. An investigation is underway to determine the cause of the fire, but officials believe it could have been the result of a technical or electrical malfunction. While the subway does not operate over the Sabbath, maintenance work is sometimes carried out in the tunnels. A resident that lives nearby the Paris Square station was treated for minor smoke inhalation. It took firefighters several hours to extinguish the fire. The Carmelit subway has ceased all operations until the damage, which officials estimate will run into tens of millions of shekels, is repaired. It's been 20 years since the helicopter crash, which killed 73 IDF servicemen. To mark the event, 73 jeeps set out from the memorial on Sha'ar Yeshuv across the Galilee Panhandle to the memorial for one of the victims, who was from the Druze village of Beit Shemesh. The government memorial ceremony will be held next Wednesday at Kibbutz Dafna. Residents of the city of Ramat Beit Shemesh are living in fear following a series of attacks by wild dogs in recent months. IBA's Sam Sokol has the story.
Wild dogs roaming the streets of Beit Shemesh, terrorizing the public and attacking innocent people. Last week, dogs bit a young woman and dragged her down the street, and residents like Ellie Fine say authorities are not doing enough.
We've seen dogs just run out of the mountain area and just knock people over and bite them and traumatize them. 5 people have been hospitalized because of the dogs. Other people have been attacked, but if they're not bitten, then they don't go to the hospital. But many people have been chased.
Jennifer Early says she was chased by packs of wild dogs and is so traumatized she's afraid to go outside.
Out of nowhere, 3 dogs right next to me, and thank God I run with my mace on me. So sprayed them with mace, and they just, you saw them like suffering like that, and ran off while they weren't moving.
Like Jennifer, Ellie Fine also said that she has been scared of going outside since the attacks began.
I don't walk outside at all, and I'm getting hit my exercise, and my dog is suffering because she's not walking. I don't let the kids go past the chanaya over here. They're allowed to play by the house, and we've gotten over rules of what to do if you see a dog, because they have entered our chanaya, so they know to run to a neighbor, or if some of the homes here have gates, to run behind a gate.
Unfortunately, Fine says, efforts by a dog catcher hired by the municipality have been less than successful.
What happens with the tranquilizer gun is that they shoot it, they hit the dog, and then the dog runs away and hides and falls asleep somewhere, and then it wears off.
Despite residents' complaints, however, City Attorney Mickey Gastwort says that authorities are doing everything possible and complained about what he characterized as irresponsible behavior by the city's critics.
We're doing everything in our power. We bought these big cages. We are now placing cages, hopefully to try to catch the dogs at night with cages. With bait, these are humane cages. We do not kill the dogs. A lot of the residents have said so. In fact, the honest ones have said that the situation is much, much better. Unfortunately, and I have to say that I must condemn residents of the city and other people who have done things that are unspeakable. Just today, the police called in for questioning one of the city workers who's in charge of catching dogs under the false accusations that he kills dogs, that he, was doing all kinds of illegal things. These are things that are totally not true.
Residents in the municipality have provided sharply divergent narratives of what is happening here, with each side blaming the other. But what is clear is that the problem remains and has yet to be solved. Reporting from Beit Shemesh, this is Sam Sokol for IBA News.
Thanks, Sam. Over the past 2 days, El Al canceled 6 flights to European destinations and 3 overnight international flights to the United States and Russia. This was in response to the ongoing dispute between management and the pilots' union over benefits for aging pilots. A statement released by the management of national carrier said that the pilots are continuing their strike despite an agreed-upon wage framework that averted similar actions last month. A spokesman for the pilots' union rejected the claims, saying pilots are simply refusing to fly beyond their contractual requirements. And in keeping with our weekly tradition, here are 5 good news stories that may put a smile on your face as we kick off a new week in Israel. Israel is a major player in the automobile industry with its development of smart cars. Speaking last week at the annual Cyber Tech Conference, Prime Minister Netanyahu said Israel currently has 500 startups dealing with the new innovative technology. Israeli startup Aperio wins an innovation prize at the Cybertech Startup Competition, paving its way to the world's top information security meeting in San Francisco later this year. And staying in the field of cyber, Israeli scientist Professor Adi Shamir of the Weizmann Institute wins the prestigious Japan Prize and Award for Cybertography work, recognized as a pioneer in digital formation security. And the largest exhibit of Greek ceramics in history just opened at Jerusalem's Bible Lands Museum. Some of the artifacts date back to 500 BC. The exhibit, called Gods, Heroes, and Mortals, kicked off the museum's 25th anniversary celebration. And finally, Israel's Nilit Plastics company has been sold for $250 million to the U.S. Specialty materials company Cleanese Corporation, the company based in Migdal HaEmek, will retain ownership of several of its businesses worldwide. And after successful tours in Europe, the Far East, the Kiev Virtuosi Ensemble has arrived in Israel and will perform in a number of cities, including 13 in Jerusalem, to celebrate the 25 years of ties between Israel and the Ukraine. Director of the ensemble, Maestro Dmitry Yablonsky, will conduct the performances with 16 soloists performing a lineup of music from Bach to Gershwin. And in finance, the stock exchanges up and currency markets are still closed for the weekend. Here are the numbers. Turning to the weather, the forecast is for warm temperatures tomorrow, mostly sunny with partly cloudy skies. Here are the expected highs and lows at home and abroad for the next 24 hours. That's all for this newscast. We'll be back here tomorrow, same time, same channel, with the latest news from Israel. Until then, I'm Yael Shir, wishing you a good evening and shalom from Jerusalem.